Finding empowerment, embracing layers, yeah. We get to. Hello, and welcome to the F.E.E.L Podcast this week. This is a very special episode. It is part of our Podcasthon feature this year in 2026. Thanks so much to Podcasthon. Go to podcasthon.org to check out all of the incredible podcasts that are featuring nonprofits from around the world this week. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity. I first started participating with them last year when I featured Her Story Writers Network, which is a nonprofit I used to work with and I'm very passionate about. I got another opportunity this year to participate, and I knew the minute they reached out to me in November who I was going to feature, and it's Callisto. And you all, if you've been with me, may remember that name. You may have seen me feature them on our socials and advocate for them. You may remember the episode that I had in the fall, released early in our fall season of 2025 with their CEO, Tracy DeTomsai. She's back with me today. And I'm going to put the link to that episode in the show notes because it's a great episode to learn more about her and her story and how she got connected to this incredibly important organization. But today we're going to spend this time talking about Callisto specifically, why it's important, why it's necessary, what's possible through the tools and resources that they are providing, how Callisto can stop the next Epstein. This doesn't have to be a thing that we have to survive later in this world. We can stop these things, and this nonprofit has the tools, the resources to do that, but we need to fund it. We need to let people know about it. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm at the time we're recording this, about a month before it drops on March 10th, Epstein files are all over the news, especially if you live in the US, but around the world, because as we are learning, powerful people from around the world are being shielded while we watch our survivors continually be re-traumatized. And I told Tracy before we got on, I'm so angry this week. And I'm so thankful for this conversation to highlight Callisto because I need to be reminded of the hope that exists out there and the possibility that exists. And that's what Podcasthon provides. And I'm so thankful for that. You'll notice I'm dropping this on a Tuesday when I normally drop my solo episode. But I'm like, nope, I want the focus to be on this organization today and this week. And I want you all to go and donate when you're done listening. And I want you to let every woman, every survivor, man, college campuses across the world, let them know this exists. I'm very passionate about this. Tracy, thanks so much for coming back with me today and recording this. I'm going to turn the time over to you and we'll go back and forth, but I really want you to share how it is that Callisto can stop the next Epstein, how people can get engaged with it, the resources. There's a whole Project Callisto portion of this. I want you to utilize this time, the next 30 minutes or so, to share everything you feel like people need to know about this impactful, important organization.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. It's an honor to be back and to be able to be chosen for this special episode because we need all of the awareness that we can get, particularly in the US, but around the world. And so I have the pleasure of being the CEO of Callisto. And to start, we are a Tech for Good nonprofit that has built encrypted technology to help survivors of sexual assault find out if their perpetrator has harmed somebody else without having to publicly disclose. And I'll get into that of like how we do that in just a bit, but to kind of answer your question about how do we prevent the next Epstein and framing it around all of that. So as you know, Jess Michaels is an Epstein survivor from 1991, and she is also a dear friend of mine. And I can share this story with her permission and this experience of hers with her permission. But One of the things that she was raped by him in 1991, and in 2018, she saw an article by Julie K. Brown, The Perversion of Justice, and it was about Epstein's sweetheart deal in the early 2000s. And she was scrolling through her feed and she saw his picture and she was like, holy cow, that's the man who assaulted me. And she was able to prove that with a lot of different records. You can go on her socials and find out her story from her. But she said that was the day she began healing. And now she's connected to so many other Epstein survivors who they are just empowered by learning the stories of what happened to them. And part of the big piece of why that was so healing for her, it was because she realized that what he did to her was not her fault. All of the things that he did to manipulate and groom her were calculated and knew that she would fall for it, and was a very calculated plan, which is what perpetrators do. And she also got to see how he did that same thing to other people, so that she had no power in that. She was 22 years old and he was in his 40s. And she had no place. She was, a 22-year-old living in New York, and he was a billionaire living also in New York, but in this palace on Madison Avenue, I think is where he lives. I don't know. But anyway, so now we're seeing in all of these drops of the Epstein files of how many times survivors reported starting in the 90s and the early 2000s, and how the FBI and how the Department of Justice did not help them, and how they're still in 2026 covering up for powerful men and powerful women, and how the survivors never had a collective voice. And now that they have a collective voice, they're starting to make cracks. But look at how hard it is for them. Look at the threats that they're experiencing. Look at the gaslighting that they're being experienced. And that is happening on college campuses. It's happening at institutions. It's happening at churches, in the Catholic Church and all the different types of churches. It's happening in workplaces. And that exact same thing that you're seeing at the Epstein files are in the Epstein network, and this sex trafficking ring is just a description of what's happening everywhere. And I can say that because I have worked with survivors and perpetrators of sexual violence for 25 years. So I know how these systems work in more of a microcosm and more of a local thing. And the local DA office is just as corrupt as the Department of Justice in so many different times.
Yeah.
So framing it that way, I kind of want to talk about, how does Callisto be a solution? Because I came to Callisto 4 years ago because I believed, after all the time working with survivors and perpetrators, that this is actually a solution in how to change systems to help survivors and to hold perpetrators accountable. Because we have to take it out of these systems that they're not broken. They're working exactly how the people in power want them to work and want them to cover it up. So they're not broken systems. They're designed to keep survivors silent, which is why they are not working for survivors. And not only are they not working for survivors, they're also very traumatic and create more trauma for survivors. So given all of this of why survivors don't report and how few of survivors report, we have created this encrypted system that right now anybody with a .edu email address in the US and its territories can use for free. And what our system does is that if you have that .edu email address, you create an account, and then you enter into matching if you want to find out if your perpetrators harmed somebody else. It's fairly simple. You put in the state where the assault occurred, and that's because sexual assault laws vary by state. And so we want to make sure to get you the information possible. Then you put in a unique identifier of your perpetrator, and that's what we use to match on. So that is your perpetrator's social media handles, email address, phone number. There's about 12 different things that you can put in, and you put in as many as you know, and that's what we use to match on. So, for example, if two people put in the same Instagram handle of a person, there's going to be a match. It is not like a dating site. You're not going to know right away. And all of this information is end-to-end encrypted. So it's encrypted before it hits our servers. So until there's a match, nobody can see anything. They can't see information about the perpetrators or the survivors. When a match happens, we assign that case to a confidential survivor advocate who reaches out to the survivor separately and says, there's been a match. Did you want to meet? It is the choice of survivors if they want to meet with that advocate. If they choose to meet with that advocate, then they will say what happened to them for the first time, and that advocate will help them with their options. So, what are your legal options, whether it be criminal law, civil law, Title IX, whatever the case may be? Also, what are your mental health options? How can you get connected with other survivors, even not of the same perpetrator, but how can you get the help that you need? Then, if it's safe to do so after going through the risks and the survivor's consent, that advocate will work at connecting the survivors to pursue healing and justice, whatever that means for them. So,
Yeah.
we are not a database that people can sort through. We are not a warning system. We do not investigate what happens. And we do not report to police, Title IX, or HR. We are really about empowering those survivors because we know that if we empower those survivors to make decisions, we've already seen that survivors are more likely to report that to the authorities. And we've seen with the Me Too movement that when multiple survivors report at the same time, there's strength in numbers, they're more believable, they're harder to ignore, and there's more likely to be accountability with those perpetrators. And eventually we can change these systems and recreate these systems with data that we do not have right now across these systems.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pause right there. Just
Yes.
because I know that's a lot of information.
Yes, that's a lot of information. I have a question about the advocates. How were they chosen? How were they, what is the process of deciding that they can be this for these survivors?
Yeah. So we are working with an organization called Ampersand Advocacy Resources. And they have folks that have been doing this work for 10 plus years or more, decades worth of experience, working with survivors, working as advocates for survivors. And so they really provide these services
Okay.
for them. And
Okay.
they're helping us design this program more and more because Callisto doesn't exist anywhere else. Like there's no other organization or company that is successfully matching survivors in this way that is trauma informed and survivor centric. We are all about the survivors first.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to work with people that are already doing these advocacy resources and have the capacity to help these survivors in that way.
Yeah. I think because trust is such a big issue in this of like, who can I trust? And there's so much fear that goes into it. So, so important that this organization has been vetted by you, that they have vetted these and how they got the connection. What, going back farther, and this is before you came on board, but what sparked the idea that, wait a minute, we know there's power in numbers. We know that if we can create a system where they can report this happened to me, because we also know that perpetrators don't most of the time perpetrate one time. It tends to be especially the way the system's set up, they get away with it. No one calls them out on it. And there's so many stigmas around still to this day. It drives me crazy. And I have 3 daughters, and I remember having these conversations with them that you are not responsible for anybody doing anything inappropriate to you. It does not matter how you dressed. It does not matter how much you've had to drink. It does not. Whatever the case is, all these things that come up, especially on college campuses, is you're figuring out how the world operates and where you fit into it and how to socialize and what's safe and not safe. There's so much you don't know. But what was kind of the brainchild of like, hold on a minute. We know historically, because individual survivors get absolutely re-traumatized and accosted and abused continually through these terribly horrible systems that aren't built for them. But if there's enough people, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. One might have been lying, which there's numbers out there. It's what is you probably know this better than me. It's something between 93 and 98% of the people that report are telling the truth. Like
Absolutely. Yes.
it's such a small number, but yet we still have these stigmas and stereotypes. But what was the kind of like, hold on a minute, we can do something here?
Yeah. So Jess Ladd is our founder, and she is a survivor of sexual assault on a college campus. And she reported to Title IX, and it didn't go well. And she was building technology to help with sexual health in general. And so in 2013, over 10 years ago, she had this idea. And it came from the fact that she did a bunch of research of sexual assault on college campuses. And she found that 90% of sexual assault on college campuses are committed by serial perpetrators who on average offend 6 times while in college. And so she was like, how do we get these 6 together? How do we prevent campus sexual assault? Because if you can get 2 survivors together who are more likely to be believed, then you'll stop sexual assault after 2 versus 6, which 2 is too many. 1 is too many. But if we can get to that now, we can reduce college sexual assault by 59%. So she thought about all of her experiences and like, we need it completely secure. We need it completely encrypted where people cannot hack into it. We need it completely kept under confidentiality. And this idea of privacy enhancing technology where everything's private until there's a match. And even after there's a match, our system keeps it covered under confidentiality, right? And protects it as much as possible based on state to state laws under confidentiality. And the survivors are informed of that before they even enter in. So that is really what her idea was. But think about that. That was 2013. That was 4 to 5 years before Me Too happened. And I think that when Me Too hit, it just showed how many survivors had reported Harvey Weinstein. Rowena Chu is somebody that was in that first article about Harvey Weinstein. And she wasn't named in that article because she was still anonymous and she talked off the record, but she is on our board of directors because she believes in the power of Callisto based on her experiences. So you think about, when Me Too hit, you saw famous and powerful men fall because not that the systems didn't know. The systems knew. Survivors were reporting. Survivors were talking about it. Weinstein was a quote unquote open secret in Hollywood. It was because we knew. And we knew because survivors felt comfortable and safe coming forward for the first time. And that was the difference, So Jess's hypothesis was right. And we saw that in Me Too. You think about Larry Nassar, who was the USA gymnastics doctor. He was reported in 96, in 97, into the early 2000s, numerous times. He was reported to Michigan State. He was reported to East Lansing Police Department. And every time they closed the case because they believed him because he was an outgoing, friendly guy that said that he did all of these things under the guise of medical care, which was not true. And they didn't investigate any further and they closed the case. So when the next person reported, there was no open case and there was no reports and there was nothing to go back to because that was closed. And that is by design. Everybody thinks that sexual assault reporting looks like an episode of Law and Order SVU, where these are particularly heinous crimes. And that's not how they're treated at all. There is not somebody with a computer that has access to all these systems that are interconnected in state by state databases. That doesn't actually happen. And the times that it does happen, people don't have access to that or the resources to even do it. Even the best people in the systems are still working with systems that don't want to connect. And so we have this like myth in society about what it's going to look like and what our criminal justice system does. And it does not happen. And I mean, one other example of that is that I know numerous cases in numerous different jurisdictions of people having video evidence or text message evidence or both. And they take the case, they go to the police, they file a police report, the police investigate it, it goes to the DA's office and the district attorney, the DA, looks at that case and says, I don't think a jury will convict this person. So we're not going to prosecute. We're not going to press charges. The survivor cannot press charges. The district attorney presses charges. And so if that district attorney decides, no, I don't want to, or they're paid off, like in the case of Weinstein in New York, that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. And that's so key. And I want to also talk about the fact that, back in 2006, Tarana Burke initially just put Me Too out there, but it took years and a massive amount of women, and I will say a lot of white women, because Black women stories in this are tragically dismissed, even at a higher level. But it took all those years later of all of these people coming forward, going back to Callisto's belief that if we can help these victims report and connect and let people know this perpetrator is out there, we together collectively can make a difference. That's the message we're sending. We have a lot of work to create a safe world where we just believe survivors, for God's sakes. I mean, it's insanity. We've seen this play out on TV sets over and over again. You look at, Supreme Court justices, 2 of them that we have on our freaking Supreme Court right now. The women that came forward and spoke about the atrocities that were done to them were treated like they were the problem. And these powerful men sit on the Supreme Court today. I mean, it's just maddening to me. And so that
happens at local levels where they're judges in their communities. And it happens, like, I know so many cases like that. And so that is the one that we got to see because of who the perpetrator was. That's the other thing, is that we get to see Epstein after years and decades and decades. We got to see Weinstein after decades because they had power and people wanted to know them and the journalists wanted to report them, right? And it was a story that would sell. We at Callisto are dealing with the stories that people don't care about. Unless they're an athlete that's making money for the school, people don't care about the random perpetrator on a college campus. Like, journalists don't care about that until you get the numbers. But how are you getting the survivors to come together to even know that they're not the only one? And so we are trying to help people that are watching these Epstein files drop, and they're watching the DOJ respond, and they're watching the survivors speak, and they may not even put it together, but if they're survivors, it's hitting them. It's making them angry, like you said at the top of the show. And it's having these feelings, and what some are connecting and what some are not connecting is that it's because it's exactly what they experienced in their local communities. It is no different. It is just at a bigger level. That's the only thing that has changed.
Yeah, it's, a guest that we had on a few weeks ago, Jody Bongarden. She's done a lot of advocacy work over the years for women. She created a sports doll many years ago that represented what girls actually look like. She's advised in DC. She wrote on her Substack the other day about, this isn't that things are getting, people are like, oh, things keep getting worse. She's like, they've been worse for 35 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years.
We're just seeing them.
We're just, exactly. That's exactly her title of it, is like, it's not getting worse. You're just seeing it now. And
I will give, go ahead. And then I'll.
Yeah, and it's like, it's like, so how do we get to this point? It's like, why in the hell, and I said hell, did it take these years? I mean, and it's the way it goes back to what you said. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I'm going to put the link to it in the show notes, where she is giving a history on Epstein and how he got started and how the Southern Court District in South Florida just completely enabled him to get away with this for years and years and years with very high profile names that if you pay attention in the world, you're going to recognize. And so it's no wonder that people that have been abused feel so like, I have no chance. And that's why it's so important that your organization exists. It was founded by someone who had been there. So she's got the empathy, she's got the understanding, she's got the wisdom, she's got the care for the confidentiality, to making sure you're being heard and tended to by people who you can trust. I mean, I think it's really important. And this is for anyone who has experienced sexual assault, man, woman, non-binary, across the board. This is a place for you. So while my platform is known for featuring women, and we know the numbers about women, it's for everyone. If you have been sexually assaulted, Callisto is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that is key because, like you said earlier, it does impact women of color, LGBTQ folks, people with disabilities, people who are international students and are here on a visa, they're not going to report because they're not going to want to lose their visa, particularly right now in 2026.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so they might not go report because they don't feel safe, but maybe they could help somebody else report who has been assaulted by somebody, by the same person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have matches. And the other thing about our system is that it doesn't matter who the perpetrator is. The perpetrator does not have to be connected to the college, and it connects survivors. We've got several coast to coast matches where one survivor lives on one coast and one survivor lives on the other coast. And that means the perpetrator has moved or the survivor has moved. But we know that survivors often question, because of society, because of all of this stuff, they question, did that happen? Is it my fault? I should have known better. I should have done all of these things. The should. And what I always say is that, like, you're not responsible for what happened to you. The only person that's responsible is the perpetrator. But there's so much confusion around even the most well-meaning things of, like, safety lists. Oh, we want to have a safety list for women. And it is, cover your drink, don't run at night, don't, do the buddy system, and, don't drink too much, don't do all these things. So when you do drink too much, when you didn't cover your drink, what's your first thing? Oh, it was my fault. I didn't cover my drink. I drank too much. So I am what's wrong. No, the safety list should be, don't let your friend rape.
Yeah. The safety list should be, let's teach our children when they're very small that this is a horrible, awful thing to do, and you should never do it to another human. Let's do that. I mean, the message, and it starts with all these little messages that we send little boys and little girls and non-binary children when they're very young about how they're supposed to, what's acceptable, what you can't do, whose responsibility it is. Let's make each child accountable for themselves to know what's right and honorable and what is not. I mean, and inflicting any kind of control or power or where there's that's not okay. That's not how we treat and interact with other humans, no matter what. I mean, I think that, we just have such a misguided idea. And so we end up with these systems that we have today. We're getting close to the end here. So I want to talk to us about where the dollars go. Like we talked about really in general, how the system works. When I go on and I click and I give $100 to Callisto, what costs are involved? What does that pay for?
Yeah, it pays for us to build the tech in-house. It pays for us to get people to know about it. And that's a huge thing too. We're trying to do the network effect, because the more people that know about Callisto, the more people who are going to use it, the more matches we're going to have, the more people we can help. And, so it gets better the more people that know about it, but people don't want to follow stuff about sexual assault. They don't know to look up this stuff. It's not something that, anybody really wants to follow an Instagram page on sexual assault. So we rely on Callisto ambassadors, which are students who are volunteers. And so we have a program for that we invest in. So we can give students like the brochures and the things that are needed to spread the word on their campus. And so that's what $100 will pay for is to do that, and to pay for social media marketing costs that, might not be glamorous, but are absolutely necessary for everybody to know about Callisto.
Okay.
And I think that
go ahead.
Well, and I think that the difficult thing, and you can see this now too, is that powerful, wealthy people are caught up in these Epstein files, right? Those are the people who could be donating to us. Those are the people who own foundations and run foundations that we cannot get money from, because one, we are so new. This technology is still so new that people want to understand it, and they don't always understand why we need it or exactly how it works, because it's not a good soundbite, right? We are doing something completely innovative, and a lot of foundations are wanting like what works and what really, what is known to be true. And if you're looking at these, how the Epstein files are happening and all of this stuff right now, can you imagine if any of those people put their name on an organization like Callisto for a sponsorship? There's so many questions and so much PR backlash. So they would rather just avoid it. The amount of times we get, it's a great cause. Well, it's not for us though. whether that's a
Mhm.
foundation or an individual donor. And so we rely on 5, 10, $15 donations. We also would love $1,000 and $100,000 donations. And we've got
Sure.
several $100,000 donors. And Arnold Ventures is a great partner of ours that has
Mhm.
a foundation that will take the risk on us.
Sure. Sure. But hey, $1 million donors, if you're out there, they're open. The door's open. Tracy's
Doors
happy
are
to talk
open.
to you. So how, if you're listening, you are an administrator on a college campus and you're like, oh, I'd love to have some, how do people contact you to get you engaged on their campus?
Yeah, so you can either go to our website at projectcallisto.org, and there's a couple forms that you can fill out. There's an online toolkit for free that you can use to just spread the word. You can also contact us at contact@projectcallisto.org. We answer all of the emails, and we have some of our staff that are absolutely going to reach out to you and help you through that process. So we want to
Okay.
make that as easy as possible.
Let's say you're an individual student and you just want to be an advocate on your campus, regardless of whether administrators can they do that as well?
Absolutely. You can go to either you can contact us at at projectcallisto.org, or you can go on our website and there's a how to get involved page. And one of
Okay.
those things is to become a Callisto ambassador. And that is how there's an application in there that you can sign up for and to spread the word on your campus. We'll give you training, we'll give you the brochures and everything that it is that you need to spread the word on your campus.
Okay. Such an empowering tool to give to people to like, I can do something about this, especially if you know something. And I shared this with you, and I know we're winding down, but something that I have been so passionate about this since I was very young. I had a friend in high school that experienced this at a horrible level and in her own family system, and watching how it was navigated and what she had to go through and what she carried was just made me angry. I watched a church system. I grew up in the Mormon church. I watched them protect an abusive man who was abusing his own daughter and other people within it, and watched the people, including boys that knew about it, that were her friend, that she would try to report, and I watched him be protected, and it was the most disgusting, horrifying thing. And I just remember that it's everywhere, and it's the problem is it's just like you said, the system isn't broken. It was built for these powerful people, patriarchal systems, I'm just going to say it, in place. And so we have to come up with creative ways as we continue to work to break these systems down and blow these systems up and make them safe, so that we're no longer living in the world that we live in right now. But as we are, we know that numbers count, and we know that volume together matters, and we know that we must give resources. So thank you so much for being with me today, for the important work you do. This is going to go to our website on the resources page to get all this information about Callisto. And you can listen to my episode with Tracy back in September to learn more about her and her background and how she got connected with Callisto. There's so many ways you can connect with this organization, from being a student to a millionaire, a billionaire, everywhere in between. But find a way, let other people know, and let's change this trajectory for survivors and put them in the seat of empowerment and safety. I'm so passionate about this, and I'm so thankful for importantly, massively brave people that do this work every single day. And if you are a survivor out there listening, go to Callisto. Now, we talked about earlier, Tracy, one last question. You guys work specifically with college campuses, and we know this is a big.
Mhm.
Can other people outside of that still reach out to you, and can you refer them out to sources even if they aren't on a college campus?
We do have some other resources on our page.
Okay.
We do typically help people as much as possible. We don't have a huge capacity for that. However,
Sure.
um, What I will say is that we are looking to expand. And so we are
Okay,
actively pursuing funding to be able to expand beyond college campuses. It wouldn't be fully open yet to the
sure.
public, but working with unions and membership organizations to get their members access. So that's also a way
Sure.
that we can reach out. But there are definitely resources on our website that people can find.
And that also adds an exclamation point of why your dollars are so important for this organization.
Absolutely.
So this can be available to anyone, anywhere that needs this support. Tracy, thank you so much for what you do. Go to projectcallisto.org to support. Did I get that right?
Yes, projectlisto.org.
Projectcallisto.org to learn more, to find out how you can support, to become an advocate for, an ambassador for, a donor to let share it across your platforms far and wide. So thankful to be able to feature this massively important resource as part of Podcasthon 2026. Listeners, thanks so much for being with us. This information is in the show notes. It's on our resources page at embracinglayers.com. If you're driving along or running or whatever you're doing, you're at work, you don't have a place to write it down, it's okay. It's all there. Thanks so much for listening. We've just given you a ton of resources. Let's go out and make this a safe place in the world for survivors. And let's really long term, I know it sounds Pollyannish, but let's raise our kids in a way that we no longer have survivors because we no longer have sexual assault. But for now, as we do, we've got these great resources. Go utilize them, share them across the board. Tracy, take good care. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, you know the assignment. Go check it out. Take good care. Be safe. Know that you're worthy, that you're valuable, and you get to choose. We'll see you next time on the F.E.E.L Podcast.